Hey everybody, welcome to the JMCC podcast. You guys put one up last week on your channel, so it's been a while. I'm finally getting into actually uploading the stuff. This will probably come out hopefully by next week. I'll actually be doing it since I technically only have like 3 on my thing, and then you already have yours on your channel. So I'll actually have this uploaded by next week, but we're getting back into things, and Derek is going to start us off, so you can go ahead with the first topic for today.
Okay, since the unfortunate death of Satoru Iwata, rest in peace, a lot of people have been talking about Nintendo and some of their recent decisions and where they go from here. Among them, I think somewhere to start would be what people want their upcoming console, the Nintendo NX, to be, since that's one of their big projects for the future.
Um, I don't.
What do you guys think about the NX?
I hadn't really heard anything about it just yet. I heard recently, and I guess this is what it was related to. I just didn't watch the video on game trailers, but they were talking about how Nintendo said they're basically done with the Wii U. So I guess that's kind of where that comes from, because they're working on their next console, which personally I think is really early, because we're at a point now. I mean, I guess it's always been this way with games where they always have at least like a 5 year or so span, but now it seems like systems last maybe 6 or 7 years, and even when the new console generation comes out, especially like with the PS3 and 360 and stuff like that, games still last a lot longer. So I'm not sure what to expect for that. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna. I would assume they're gonna stick with motion controls, at least in some sense. We'd have to see if whatever the next console they make is going to be similar to the Wii U, treating fans of, like, the GameCube controller well, and it would be like, well, it has to still connect to old Wii U controllers, possibly still the gamepads from the initial Wii U if it's not a brand new gamepad, a new system that way. Like, there's a lot of different aspects to it. I would hope that it is similar at least, and it does stick to that, because that's honestly something that no one else has ever done either. Is the fact that 3 consoles later, you can technically still use a GameCube controller. It's only for Smash Brothers, but in that small aspect, that's still far beyond anything any other console has ever done that I can think of. I mean, there's some minor stuff like Sega did it before with their all their systems, how everything kind of just went together at one point for Sega. So aside from that, I think Nintendo has done some interesting stuff, and hopefully they kind of stick to that.
Wasn't the NX supposed to like break into mobile gaming or something?
No, more that's more of a side project for Nintendo.
Oh, really?
But yes, they have announced they're going to start looking into mobile gaming.
Which is about time, and surprising even, because I remember years ago on like G4 they were talking about that, like how come Nintendo doesn't just say, like, here's Super Mario Brothers. They already have more than enough money. There's like a ton of videos where people talked about I think it was when the Wii U first came out, and how their sales were worse than they'd ever been. But it's like they have so much money, it was like they could be bankrupt for 20 years straight and still have money to make their products and stuff. But if they did do mobile gaming, I think it would be so easy for them. It's like, here's, even if it was the original Super Mario Brothers for $1, like a ton of people would still buy that, even though it's like Super Mario Brothers, or anything really, because it's jump and run, and that's it. You could do that.
Hold that thought, Terrence, because we have to do a second take because your computer got shut down in the middle of that recording.
Yes, it did. All right, so sorry about that, guys. Just shut off because my laptop's kind of stupid. But like I was saying, as far as mobile games, I am surprised they didn't do that, because it is really simple for them, and they make a ton of money doing it. And it's just such a simple concept that I'm surprised they really chose to shy away from that, and I never really understood why. It wasn't like, because they could have easily done it themselves. It's like,
I'm thinking maybe they imagine mobile gaming as games similar to Angry Birds and Candy Crush, and that's it.
But there are a lot of companies that do it. I mean, a lot of even Japanese companies. There are like a ton of Pokemon games, aren't there? Like,
Actually, there was like a Pokedex app for the iPhone released back, I think during Black and White.
Yeah, like see, they put stuff out there. It's like they don't. I mean, I guess in a sense, Pokemon is a first party. Yeah, I mean it's Pokemon, so of course it is. But they don't do like their big stuff like Mario and Donkey Kong and stuff like that. But they're companies like Square Enix. They're like, aren't there like a billion different like mobile Final Fantasy games? Like I remember seeing a ton of those before.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. Of
Yeah,
those,
so
especially-
and
There
that's,
was
you know,
there
that's
was
Square
one
Enix.
Final Fantasy game that I heard of that was on mobile that basically was just like basically fan service disguised as I know it was
all the bravest.
yeah, all the bravest. Like
Or is it that museum one?
it was basically it nickels and dimes you just so you can have like a bunch of Final Fantasy characters from multiple games.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, Square Enix has a ton of their stuff on. Like I actually just recently downloaded. It was probably like a month or so ago. I have a Tomb Raider game. It's basically like Temple Runner, but it's in the Tomb Raider franchise, and that's actually really fun. Like you actually get to go through. You can shoot in certain portion. There are boss battles. They have 2 levels created, but you have to get like obviously like they have like the microtransactions and stuff, or you can wait forever to get like the special jewels, which you can only get through like these random drops that happen every 5 hours. But they put that stuff out there. You know, they make money because it's a free, simple game. It's well done, and then you have however many companies. Like I can't tell you guys how many times I've seen a freaking ad on that game for like a GI Joe game. So they make money off of all these ads, just like everyone else does who puts out a free game. But Nintendo could easily do that, and they'd make, you know, it wouldn't even have to be free. It could be like, here's $1, even if it's, like I said, the original Mario, and it would still happen.
Yeah, I gotcha. Because they have done sort of similar things like that in the past in terms of taking their more well-known games and then like porting them over to something more portable, I guess. Like they've been doing it probably since the Game Boy Color when they released Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, where it was basically the original Super Mario Brothers, only they added in new features, like, you know, like a multiplayer mode. They added in the lost levels. Then they went into the Game Boy Advance. They made enhanced remakes of like Mario's 2, 3, World, and Yoshi's Island. Then they had the classic NES library, which consisted of games like the original Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, and all that other stuff. Actually, like some of those games were even being released on the e-reader back when they thought it mattered. And you know, and even now the 3DS has the virtual console. So basically, there is a market for just releasing a bunch of Nintendo games on the go. Like I think that's going to be the main appeal of this. Again, the only setback would probably be the fact that you don't have physical feedback when you're playing the game. But you know, if some people like are willing to. I mean, that doesn't stop people from like buying, not buying, but downloading emulators, so they can play on their phone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, lots and lots of mobile money that Nintendo, I guess, is trying to get access to.
And they easily could. And I mean, I'm sure with this new console, it still won't be the main focus, but I think it is something that they're. I mean, if it is what they're actually trying to move into, and it's not just another console, I think it's a good idea for them because they could just easily make a lot more money through even free games. People would love to pay for ads, especially, you know, it's like, well, if it's Nintendo or it's Square Enix or if Sony did stuff like that, people would pay to have their ads in there for those free games because it's like, it's the big companies in gaming. So, of course,
Sounds
you
like
do that.
you're hoping for Nintendo going into mobile to be more of their main focus.
I don't really care personally. I wouldn't buy anything mobile because I don't really play on my phone. I just think it's a good business practice in general that they've really never done, you know, for the most part, and it's for decades now. And mobile gaming, you know, gaming on your phones, it happens with all sorts of games all the time. There are like a million Japanese games that come out on mobile that we never get in America. And those aren't Nintendo games, but there's like a ton of those, and they obviously work even in Japan alone. And, you know, they'd easily work here, especially if it was something as big as Nintendo, because that is actually worldwide.
I agree that something like a virtual console for mobile devices would be a pretty good move. But from what I've heard, they're partnering with a development studio to make original games for mobile.
And that's fine too. I mean, it's still them. It's still a market that they chose not to really get into. It's still a lot of opportunity missed if they never put like just Mario on a phone, as a mobile game. It's still a huge opportunity missed, but it's at least something that they're branching out into, and I don't know how big that would really expand, Nintendo as far as mobile gaming.
If they're gonna make original games, then I already know of one game they gotta make: WarioWare Touch 2.
Definitely.
I think Wario would be probably a number one thing for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of wish they would go back to like the micro game kind of style, especially on the phone. In fact, I think I remember like in 2010, somebody tried to make an iPhone game that was sort of in the same style as WarioWare, although I don't remember it being nearly as good. So, and again, like the reason I suggest WarioWare Touch 2 is because, of course, all smartphones have the touch screen, and like the DS did. So, they've already sort of, established themselves that they can probably make some decent touchscreen games from what we see on the DS and the 3DS. So, I mean, having only one screen is an obvious restriction, but, they could probably deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that would be simple stuff for them to make a lot more money in any regard. It's just really simple and easy. And it's like, all right, make this game seemingly easy, compared to obviously like a console game or something. But so make a much easier version of a game, put it up for free or for $1 or something, and then you just make a bunch of money off of sales as well as ads. So whether they're doing that or not, I think it's a good idea for them to do it. And I guess technically we kind of strayed off from the main console thing in general, but like I initially said, I would hope that they keep it sort of in the same vein that they're doing now, and I highly doubt they'll ever stop with motion controls. At some point, I feel like they have to go wherever technology ends up leading. It would go like even beyond motion controls, just with controllers. But I feel like that's their only real course of action. If they stop now and went to like regular controllers only, it wouldn't make sense for Nintendo's.
I hate to bring.
You're more forgiving than some of the people I've seen.
I hate to go back on this, but I was thinking of like putting ads in Nintendo games. I was wondering what kind of way could you do it in a way that's like kind of funny. And I thought of the original Super Mario Brothers and how everybody gets pissed off whenever Toad says that the princess is in another castle. I think to really recapture how the anger of that moment,
here we go.
Toad's gonna be like, "Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle. Now here's a word from our sponsors." And then it just shows like an ad while Mario and Toad are still standing down there. It just shows like a video of an advertisement, and then the next world
make
starts.
People angry,
Yeah,
that would happen.
and I don't think ad block works on mobile games, so
We never do.
I
Only for free games, that is.
I actually installed ad block on my phone, and it never blocked a single ad, and I don't know why.
What were you gonna say about the console though, Derek?
Yeah, I gathered a few notes of people talking about what the console should be.
Mm-hmm.
This is, in general, what a lot of people are saying.
It's one way to make it like a PC version for Nintendo console? Sorry for interrupting.
Pretty much, yeah, that's what people are asking.
Called it.
Nintendo branded PlayStations or PC. What you were talking about, motion controls, and that they should keep the motion controls. Point number 5. A simple console with a simple controller. Nothing like the Wii Remote or the gamepad.
So an NES controller?
Yeah,
Super advanced. I like the gamepad personally. I think it's weird using it compared to. I think the perfect example for me at least is Bayonetta, because I bought Bayonetta 2 and it comes with the first game, and I played the crap out. I played through that game like 8 times on Xbox. So it's like going through like because I do it for my channel for my gaming videos. I think the first 4 episodes, I'm like, I keep pressing the wrong button and I'm losing or I'm skipping stuff, or I keep pausing the game or something, or I go back instead of selecting the item because the buttons are different. Like it'll say press B or press A, and I'm thinking in Xbox controllers, it's like, all right, well, B is the red button on the right, and on the gamepad it'll be like the opposite, or it'll be like down where A was. So it's weird going from a typical controller to that, and I think that's mostly because of how they switched the letters around for me. But it does feel weird in your hands at first, but I've definitely gotten used to it. With it obviously being like almost a
like
mile
anything,
long
it
controller.
just takes a little bit of a learning curve, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of agree with the idea of like a simple console with a simple controller because, let's be honest here, the motion control thing has been dead for at least a few years now. Like, not even the PlayStation Move, like the Kinect is dead.
For sure.
I don't know what the hell the PlayStation Move's doing now,
I
but
think that stopped a long time.
it never even made the
impact
impact it needed to make. I mean,
Yeah.
frig, the
It didn't
iToy made a bigger impact
It did,
than the
yeah.
PlayStation Move did, and that was before the Wii was even a thought. And like, and besides, like, motion control isn't. I think the whole idea of, let me put it this way. Motion control was popular because it felt like you were actually like making real actions to be in the game. But now we're getting into the point where we're actually starting to achieve virtual reality, and we're also getting to the point where more consoles are going back to a more traditional method. Like, the industry is basically admitting to itself, okay, you know what, that whole motion control thing, I don't know what we were thinking. I don't know why we thought this was going to last. So let's just go back to what we were doing and just make good games around it. So, really, like, I guess in terms of the traditional controller method, it's sort of an if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing. And
Continuing off of part 5, they said things like motion controls are good for a select few games, but not as the main idea for an entire console.
yeah.
I was saying when you were talking about like them going back to a traditional thing, and people saying like, you know, motion controls being sort of a fad. I think a great comparison to that would be movies in 3D. It's sort of a similar comparison where it was like a huge thing for a while, and now 3D is kind of nothing. Like everything Sony did was like, you can play this game in 3D. They put it on like PlayStation games, like Sony 3D compatible, and this movie is in 3D, and these TVs do 3D, and now it's like nothing anymore.
I remember when it started, since Avatar came out, everyone wanted to do stuff in 3D.
And
I saw Ant-Man yesterday in 3D. The 3D was actually pretty decent.
Like 3D looks good. I think it was just the fact that it became everything, and that's how it was with motion controls. It was like, and even Nintendo still kind of does that because they do it in Splatoon. Even when you first start, you aim using the gamepad for the controls, and obviously that's just like you're going a million miles a second if you're using the gamepad to aim at anything. So I think everyone turns that off. But it's just like that, I think, where it was a huge deal. I think that worked a little bit better than 3D did because 3D for movies works way better when it's like Pixar. I think they can do pretty much every movie in 3D if they want to because it's all CG anyway and it looks better. And you can do some live action stuff like I remember I believe I saw Avengers in 3D, the very first one. And you know, movies still look good, but it's not like it used to be where it's like every action movie is now in 3D, and like every game has motion controls.
I think the thing that was annoying, at least with 3D, like there's nothing really wrong with 3D in itself.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I know you're comparing it to motion controls, but the thing with 3D is that you're not sort of like adapting to a new way of viewing things. I mean, you kind of are. You're still just sitting there watching the movie.
Yeah.
It's not like with like motion controls where you, instead of like pressing buttons, you swing a stick. You know what I mean?
It's a new level.
But the thing about 3D is that I think like what annoyed a lot of people is that it was just like every movie made it a point to mention that it was in 3D. I think like maybe one or two movies nowadays still kind of do that, and I'm like, dude.
Also in 3D,
like,
yeah.
And you know, 3D does have one nice thing to it. Adds more movie times. Because now they can show it in a different theater and they can have like different movie times, so that more people will go and see the movie, and therefore the studios can make more of their money back.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think you know, like you said, it is technically different because of course you're still just sitting there with motion controls. You're actually involved even more so in the game than you ever were before. But it definitely has died down, and you know, like obviously going through the big three companies, it's like obviously Sony is like number 3 in that because they had the Move, and it looked really good. I always thought the Move was actually better than the Kinect when they did it, but they kind of stopped with it because it had, because they actually did it with controllers a lot like the Wii, and I always thought that actually worked better than the Kinect did because obviously we all know the Kinect didn't really copy anything unless you were doing Dance Central. That's like the only game it actually works for. But other than that, it was like, Sony kind of gave up on the Move after like Little Big Planet 2. That was it. That was like the last game, and it was like you can do PlayStation Move on that, and they had some exclusive levels, and then Heavy Rain had it, where you could pick stuff, and I think those are the last two games really, where it was like Sony Move, and then obviously Kinect just kind of.
I will give the PlayStation Move this. The glow ball did look cool.
That was pretty sweet. And they even had a silly game. It was almost like, crap, I forgot what they called it, but basically it was like you can't move too fast. It was like you could have like 8 people play at one time, and you'd have the motion ball, and everyone would start with the color blue. And so it was like if you moved it too fast, it would turn red. So basically it was like the last person to have blue. And that was like a really random thing, nothing to do with games. It just could change colors, and it was like, here's this brand new game you can have. And that's probably the most fun people really had with that. And you could just have a big group of people. But, they kind of dropped that. They have nothing for PS4. Obviously, Xbox, they had something. I feel like they really had something. And then they were like, you know what? It's not working 100%. And so they were like, Rare, just make 1 million games for it. And that's what happened. It was just like everything was just a Rare video game. And it was just a generic sports game, adventure game, the Disney game, and that was it. That's all they did, and then that's why it became so bad. And the game Steel Battalion, which actually focused on it but was unbelievably horrific, so that didn't help either.
Not to mention that when the Xbox One was first announced, they forced the Kinect on you completely, where it's always watching you. You need it for it's a mandatory thing on the console. It's not like with the 360 where you could still use a controller or whatever.
I think you still could. I think they just did it. I think that was when they were still doing their push for Kinect. I don't think you needed to have it, but they were still pushing it, and they did make more money off of it because obviously they charged more because it still came with Kinect. And once they got rid of that, now you can get the regular Xbox One without the Kinect attached, and it's like $150 less or something like that. And it wasn't any better. And I think that's what really destroyed it in the end. It was like it came out with the brand new console, and it's like, here's the brand new Kinect. It's better. It's more highly developed and refined to work with the Xbox One. And it was exactly the same. Like, it didn't help any of the games that they made for it. None of them worked any better than they did before. And it kind of just fell to the wayside. I don't think they even make Dance Central anymore, do they? I think they made a third one. I know they made like a fourth one, and it was like a different version, I believe, or something like that. But that's really it. And now it's like, oddly enough, it transitioned from Xbox to Wii, and they have Just Dance, and they have like 1 million of those now, and that ends up selling more than the game where you actually dance with your own body, which should never be the case. But
I'm pretty sure Just Dance came out before the Kinect was even released. I think it came out in like 2009 or something.
I think that's around when the Kinect first came out, isn't it?
I thought that was like 2010 or 2011, wasn't it?
It may have been, but they still only had like 1 or 2 games or something, and then, like they could have easily surpassed Just Dance, and they didn't because it just didn't work.
I don't remember. I think Just Dance started off as a big Wii game, then the Kinect picked it up too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Kinect had a ton of other stuff too. They had Just Dance. They had like the Michael Jackson game. I remember was on both Xbox as well as on the Wii too. And that I remember because I watched an Angry Joe review on that. And the Michael Jackson game was worse than Just Dance, which actually had multiplayer. I think it was after Just Dance.
Okay,
or not Just Dance.
I looked it up. It came out on November 4th, 2010. So, yeah, if I remember correctly, Just Dance came out like a year before. So, yeah, it came first.
Yeah, but like they had it with the Kinect, and it was like they restricted what could happen because they had Dance Central. I kept saying Just Dance, but they had Dance Central 2, I believe, came out before the Michael Jackson game. So that was when they added like, oh, in Dance Central 2, 2 people can dance at one time. And then they had like the sort of in-between game is like, here's the Michael Jackson dancing game. And they took that out, and it was like back to one person. It's like, how do you go backwards? And that's a development thing. I know that it's not, solely on the Kinect, and that's kind of the developers of the game not really working with the Kinect, but still, it's as the company creating it, you should kind of push companies to say like, hey, develop to the extreme. Like we showed that we can do this with one of our first party games, or third party because it was Harmonix and not actually Microsoft, but it's like they didn't push it enough. Then they had like the Star Wars game, which I was excited for. I remember when that first came out, and then that was horrible too.
But it had the Dance Central game in it.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, but things have motion controls have fallen to the wayside, and it's like it's still in there. It's still in some games, really, really tiny. It was in The Last of Us even, where it's like the most minuscule thing, but when your light goes off, you can shake the controller and basically it recharges the batteries on the flashlight. So it's still technically in the game. It was just like, well, it goes off just to have like a little sense of tension, I guess, because it's a horror game. But that's it. You shake the thing. It's Naughty Dog, so they, like when they have the first Uncharted, that's how you throw the grenades. You have to like aim the lift the controller up and down to change where the grenade is gonna go before you throw it. And like when you walk across planks, you have to balance the controller and stuff like that. And that was obviously really early on, but it's in there. And the Wii U, or Nintendo in general, is the one that they're the ones that have really kept motion controls going. And now even they've kind of let that go a little bit. Now it's more like do this on the stylus, even though that really sucks too. That's just as bad.
They
just like in
figured-
Bayonetta.
They pretty much figured, like, if it worked for the DS and 3DS, it'll work for the Wii U.
Yeah, and it does not. Because they have that where it's like, oh, I can be a normal human and press the buttons and fight, or I can draw a circle and attack enemies in Bayonetta. And that's horrible. I tested it out because they have that, like, when you first start the game, like, you can draw on the stylus, or they do a slash, or, tap on an enemy to shoot and stuff. And I'm like, no one would ever do that because, for one, it would be way harder to fight that way. And two, it's way less fun because you aren't going to get any of the amazing combos and all the weapons and stuff like that from, like, drawing a little circle or doing a slash. She's going to do, like, the easy version of the combos, I guess. And it's like, that's not...
I never tried using the stylus playing Bayonetta 2. I just kept pressing the
buttons.
buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah, stylus playing is only good if you like playing some sort of first-person shooter like Metroid Prime Hunter.
Yeah, that would. I think it would work there. Any other probably first-person games that are on the Wii U would probably work that way as well.
Oh, and Pikmin. So,
Yeah.
Also
I think like their first-party games, they probably have like amazing stylus support, even if it's not just like, oh, here's the map or something. It's like you can actually do stuff in the game. I'm sure it's easier that way compared to, especially with Bayonetta, because that was an actual port. But even for Bayonetta 2, which wasn't a port and was their thing, it's not going to help with a game like that. When you have a game with like hundreds of combos, I'm not going to be drawing circles and tapping and drawing lines to do like amazing moves. I want to just...
It sounds like the only way you could probably make a combo is to draw the most elaborate Picasso drawing you could ever think of.
Yeah, they make it's something that it's like, let's use the gamepad and that's pretty much it. I feel like it could have been done better for that game because the one great thing about that, it's one of the few games that does have it where you can look at the gamepad for the game. And so that I really enjoy, and I feel like they need that a lot more too, honestly. Because that was like the big thing when it first came out. Of course, it was like, oh, you can, play on the Wii U without using the TV if you're like 5 feet away, and something like that.
The off TV play.
Or if you have like the 5 specific games that even work for that, like the Super Mario games work, Smash Brothers works. Does Bayonetta 2 work? I know Bayonetta 1 does. I would assume they kept it that way.
Yes, it does.
So that's like pretty much the same. And I feel like every game should have that. I feel like it would be simple, and this is something I thought about for Splatoon. I thought it would be really easy to have it where you just switch between, you just hit a button or something, you pause it or whatever, and it just switches. It's like, all right, well, it's on the game screen, and you can see it on your gamepad as well if you want to. And you can switch from the map that's in Splatoon to what's showing up on the TV, because they actually have it in the game when you play one-on-one versus local multiplayer, they have that where you use the gamepad. One person specifically uses the gamepad to play the game, and I feel like they should have just kept that in there. And I feel like they could do that for a ton of games, and they just don't. It's like, nope, this is where your inventory is, and that's it. We'll show cutscenes, and then it goes to the inventory, because they do that with Zombie U as well. And it'll show the cutscenes just like on TV, and then when you play it, it's just a little thing.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, most DS and 3DS games use the second screen for like, maps or inventory and stuff like that,
Yeah.
so you don't have to pause the game.
Yeah, and it's just like that on the Wii U. For some games, at least, because some... well, I guess for Splatoon, it doesn't matter because you can't do anything anyway once you're in a match. So that it doesn't matter there. But for Zombie U, it's just like that. It's like it shows the cutscenes, and then when it goes back, it's your inventory, so you don't have to pause. I believe your map is on there too, and stuff like that. Or it's the map, and then you can go to your inventory inside of the game. But they do that differently. So like, if you go in the inventory, you still do in the game, but that's because it's a zombie game, and they want to make it where you have to look at both screens at the same time, which is a great concept. I think that's actually really sweet. But whatever they end up doing for this new console, they do need to stick with what they've done. Motion controls don't need to be like they were in the beginning, which even in the beginning, admittedly, they weren't that big of a deal when you think about it. I mean, Wii Sports was the big thing, and that was really it. It was like Wii Sports, Red Steel when that first came out, and that kind of flopped, unfortunately. And then they made the second one, which was totally different. Those were really like the only couple of games that really did implement it that much. And like first-person shooter games had to, of course. But that was really it. That was like the only thing that really was like, use motion controls on the Wii. I think Sony did more with motion controls than Nintendo really did. It was like, yeah, you have to point because this is what the controller is to select stuff. But ultimately, there weren't really, when you think about it, it was like, here's a little mechanic. Maybe you flick the controller to, reload or throw a grenade or something like that. But ultimately, just pointing and shooting, that's just like being at the arcade. I'd hardly count that as motion controls.
Still,
I think there have been some other games that have used more than that for the motion controls. Like,
I think
they had Dance Revolution games on there for a while.
Yeah, like those, I'm sure, the dancing games.
Then they had the WarioWare game there.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much a requirement for Nintendo. At least one WarioWare game per console.
Yeah. But,
yeah, I remember the WarioWare games. Like, I remember Touch is the one that I'm most familiar with. I also play with Smooth Moves. Mm-hmm. Like, they made the best use out of the more gimmicky parts of both the DS and the Wii. Mm-hmm. Where the Wii, they came up with like all these different poses you could play games with, and most of them worked really well. Mm-hmm. And the DS, one of the things I remember is that it actually made good use of the microphone, which very few games actually bothered to use. Mm-hmm. And whenever they did, they tried to force it in. Like, I know the Diddy Kong Racing remake, like, you had to use the microphone to, like, blow into, I think it was, like, to charge up the hovercraft or something like that. But in WarioWare, you had, like, all these games specifically designed for the microphone where you would, like, blow into it or something like that. And I remember this one game that they used to fake you out where you're not supposed to do anything. And it's, like, these guys, like, going across a tightrope, and one of them's holding like a no blowing sign or something, and if you blow into it, they all fall and die, and you lose the game. And I thought that was like, I thought that was really funny.
Trick, yeah. And I think that's some of the stuff that they should stick with for the new console. More motion controls, however they end up doing it. Like I said, the gamepad right now, I only have like 5 or 6 games really, and at this point, like I said, Bayonetta is probably the minimum. Like, literally, all they have is what you see on TV is what's on the gamepad. There's nothing extra there, like, at all. So Bayonetta is basically nothing. Smash Brothers is really, you use that more in, like, menus when you type in names and stuff than you do when you play the game. It's like it shows the stats, and you can play on it. So that's almost exactly the same as Bayonetta, except when you're making choices and stuff like that.
That reminds me, I think at one point in Brawl's development, they were going to have you, like, waggle the Wiimote to do smash attacks in Brawl.
You can do that.
Wait,
think
you can still do that?
I think I saw that. Yeah, I was playing the one on the Wii U. You can do that.
Oh, on the Wii U. I was talking about Brawl on the Wii.
They might have that in there. You might have to change it, but I saw that in one of the options where, because my girlfriend we had to sync up the controller, and it was like change the input and stuff, and I saw it on there. It was like you can shake it. It was like to turn it on or off, and it was set to off, but it was like shake the Wiimote to do a smash attack, and I was like, I never knew that was a thing before.
I thought they got rid of that because of how counterintuitive it was.
I think they may have, they had it as an option, so
Yeah.
you could turn it on and off. I thought that was weird. Like I said, I never even heard of that before. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I thought they got rid of it. Like, it sort of reminded me of when Rare was still making GoldenEye, and they had the idea of reloading the gun by taking the rumble pack out of it and putting it back in, and Nintendo rejected it.
Yeah.
And I can see why, especially considering you have to hold down that little
the button to take it out.
Yeah, to take it out first. Like, I think maybe like Rare was thinking you could just take it out and then put it back in without any sort of extra, input. Yeah, that's what I meant. It kind of reminded me of that, but it turns out, I guess I never bothered to try it out because I didn't think it would work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they still have, as far as I'm concerned, on the Wii U, I think it's really well done. It has a microphone. It has a camera. They use that now to make the Miis. You can take a picture yourself to make Miis and stuff like that. So I think they're using it really well at this point. Like I said, I only have a couple of games that really even implement it that much at this point. And that's Nintendo Land for sure. It's really their first party games, and that seems to be about it. Everything else is like, it's your inventory. And, said and done, and that's about it. But Nintendo Land uses it where you can move the gamepad around and it'll change how it looks on the TV. One of the games, like the actual F-Zero game, you have to use the gamepad to see where you're going on the screen. They have, I know there's like a Luigi's Mansion thing. I haven't played that one, but I saw it where 4 people will play on the TV, and then one person will be the ghost on the gamepad, and they can see where everyone is, and they have to try to attack the other players. And it seems like their first party games, they really do that. And, like it is technically up to the other developers how much they want to implement the gamepad, so it isn't really on Nintendo. But I feel like even with the Nintendo games, they don't do it as much as they should, where it's like you can switch stuff out and be like, all right, well, I can look at the game, or I can switch it, and this is my pause menu, and I can click this. Like for Bayonetta, I think that works perfectly. There are like a dozen weapons in that game. If you could switch it to that's your pause menu on the gamepad, and you just hit a button like, all right, I'm going to switch this weapon or switch that weapon out, that'll be perfect. But they didn't put that in. They put in stylus attacks, and that's
I
dumb.
think they're coming up with more games that involve the gamepad more heavily.
Yeah, they a good example of it is I don't know if you guys ever play Wonderful 101.
Ah, yeah.
The one, yeah, and you draw on that to do all the attacks, and that's like I think probably one of the best implementations of the gamepad.
I heard that Star Fox Zero, the new Star Fox game coming out, is made to feature the gamepad heavily.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, when they did the announcement, it's like you aim and stuff using the gamepad and things like that, which I think is going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, because that seems like it could end up being really difficult, but it seems like it would also be really cool. So I'm excited to see how that does end up playing out. I know something for sure that I would love to see, and I don't know if we'll see it with the Wii U, but in the next one, if they do continue with gamepads, I'd love to see us actually being able to use 2 gamepads on one console, because that was supposed to happen and it never did. So I'd love to see that actually take place, where you can use 2 gamepads connected to one console, because I don't know, that would just be nice. And that way, because of course one of the big things now is if you break a gamepad, you're screwed, because they don't sell gamepads. You have to find one on eBay.
That's stupid.
Yeah, they do not sell those at all. You have to buy one off of eBay to get a new gamepad if you break yours. So if they do it where you can connect multiple gamepads to a Wii console, That would be really sweet because it would just be another controller to add to it to make it really simple. Um, I think there's a lot that could be done with that as well. I don't know if you could possibly sync two gamepads together in the future. I think they'd have to add some stuff to the gamepads to do that. So it'd have to be new gamepads, but that'd be cool too. Almost like mobile phones, and you could do like a game with somebody else just through the gamepad if you have like the same game downloaded on your console or something like that. And I think that'd be a cool idea for them to have. But I don't know. We'll have to see. A lot of other stuff, I think, just they're gonna do what they're gonna do because they're Nintendo. They can kind of do whatever they want.
Including not sell separate gamepads.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they do that? Like,
I think what I looked up before was that it just costs a bunch of money, so they don't make a bunch of spares. It's just like you get it with the console, and that's pretty much it. You can link any gamepad to any console. So, like I said, if you go on eBay and someone is selling a gamepad by itself, which I've seen several times, you can do that. But like they don't make them.
yeah, I can sort of picture like Nintendo just standing by your shoulder whenever you broke one of your gamepads. It's like, broke your gamepad, huh? That sucks. You know, that Wii U of yours was running out of memory, right?
I don't know. I mean, and I think you kind of need the gamepad to use the Wii U, because you can't use a Wiimote on the Wii U.
But you can use, or unless you have a Game Pro controller, and that's kind of possible.
Yeah,
But
you
you
have
have
the-
to use like a Wiimote on a Wii though. You either have to be in a game or you have to go to the actual Wii menu because they're separated. It's not like you can't just turn on a Wii U controller and start doing stuff. You have to start off with the gamepad and then go to a separate menu for the Wii, which is another thing that I kind of hate it because they have like a stupid connection thing for the Wii U where you can connect to your internet and it'll be like, this internet works for your Wii U, but it won't work if you want to play Wii games. Or something like that. Like, it's something really stupid. Like, it doesn't connect to a certain type of internet security, which I thought was just insane.
I guess, I know what you're talking about. It has the Wii mode, which pretty much like keeps it separate from, the original like Wii, meaning that, I guess they can't share the same memory or you can't access it from the same point, which is kind of stupid, especially since the original Wii, like, it was backwards compatible with the GameCube, but all of the stuff like accessing memory cards and even just playing games, you could still do that from the Wii menu. This is like the equivalent of you start up a GameCube game, but instead of just starting up the game, it takes you to the original GameCube startup menu. Mm-hmm. Then you'd have to hold down the button so that it would spiral around, and you'd get into the inner CPU of the GameCube, which granted is cool because the GameCube had an awesome like inner
Interface.
menu.
Yeah, that was cool.
But it would be basically two completely different interfaces when you can just integrate it all into one.
Yeah, it's almost like basically switching consoles, except you just don't have to turn one off. You still switch to a whole different menu and setup, but like it's like they're in the same compartment, but you're just switching one on and switching one off.
Yeah, it's not like when I go to my PS3 and I play like a PS1 game where I want to access the virtual memory cards. I don't have to go to, the PS1's tie-dye menu or anything like that. Granted, that would be cool, but it would be incredibly impractical.
Yeah. So, I'd love to see that change. I'm sure that never will change. But hopefully they do something like that in the next console. I would never know what to expect as far as backwards compatibility, because that's always an issue now with this is so powerful and it would take so much more time to do backwards compatibility. Who knows with the next
actually, Nintendo's consoles over the past, few years, it's honestly debatable whether or not they're going to get like real backwards compatibility. Like the DS and the 3DS just got a saving grace with the Wii U because it's basically just a TV tablet version of a DS and a 3DS. I mean, yeah, you could use an emulator, but let's be honest, if they ever make if they ever decide to like go back to one screen for a handheld, you'll never be able to play a DS game on it or a 3DS game. And as well as the Wii games, let's say, Nintendo's new console is back to traditional controllers. Unless they were to completely change the controls of every one of their old Wii games to fit a traditional controller, kind of like what they did with Donkey Kong Jungle Beat when they released it on the Wii. They had to completely change the control scheme because they couldn't use the bongos anymore. And I doubt they'd be able to, or they'd even have the time to, release a new control style for all of their old Wii games, like they were able to do with some of their old GameCube games.
Yeah.
Or Donkey Kong Country Returns when it comes to the 3DS.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine. Ultimately, I'm sure we'll end up buying it if they have good games. That's always it. Be all end all. Good games, good console. But there are always those things that you hope it doesn't change too much, just as much as it should. And I think it should only change so much, especially with what they've created as far as motion controls. They can't. I don't know what would ever happen. I mean, 10 years from now, in the future in general, do you guys think that they would ever just fully stop motion controls again for the Wii? Or for Nintendo games, I mean?
I think, again, because virtual reality is kind of making a comeback and it's starting to show real results, I think that's what we're going to end up doing from now on. Rather, the motion controls was like the first step.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, actually, the first step was like all the failed experiments they did back in the 90s, like the Virtual Boy and all that stuff. And now then they sort of like moved into motion controls, and now we're actually getting into virtual reality with stuff like the Oculus Rift.
Which I think is a fairly big contender. I mean, and the Oculus Rift, comes out next year, doesn't it? The consumer version?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so that's going to be crazy to see how that plays out. And I, of course, want one of those. I got to play one time, and that was really cool. And that was like a stupid look at the stars in the galaxy thing. So that wasn't even a game, and it was really awesome. So, I guess you're right. Like, that would eventually be the thing. And whether it's 2 or 3 console generations from now, at some point, Nintendo's going to be like, well, it's all virtual reality, which would mean, sensor bars are gone, Wiimotes are gone. It'll be a different type of controller, which
That's
means
right,
there
kids.
would be
All the
no
sensor
longer...
bars are gone. Now you're gonna get now you get Super Mario with full nudity.
So now there's, there's obviously going to be a point for everything where it stops, where it becomes an obsolete console. Like, that's inevitable, I think. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be inevitable, because they could technically be like, well, here's a sensor bar, and it works for the gamepad still. But even now, which I thought was the craziest thing when I actually found this out, Wiimotes don't even work on the same sensor bar as the gamepad. Like, you have to have a different, if you go to the Wii menu at least, like, you can use it on Smash Brothers, but if you go to like a Wii menu to play the Wii games, you have to have a Wii sensor bar. You can't just switch over and be like, well, it's the same sensor bar, which I don't understand at all, because
I know what you're saying. Like, I don't expect a Wii sensor bar to be compatible with a new, like, something, a gamepad that came out years later. However, it is kind of ridiculous that the new sensor bar is not compatible with the Wiimotes.
Yeah. And like, it's weird how they have that, because like I said, it works on Smash Brothers.
I've been able to use Wiimotes with the Wii U.
Yeah,
just
like
fine.
you can use it if you play the games, but like I was talking about, like the Wii menu thing. If you switch to that Wii menu to play a regular Wii game, you have to have a Wii sensor bar, and I don't know why you have to. If
like the sensor bar from the original Wii.
Yeah, it'll be like, okay, you have to switch your sensor bars on the console and use the actual Wii sensor bar to go through the Wii menu.
Because that wasn't an issue for me.
That's what it said on mine, at least. I mean, I never tried it because I have some, but it's not a big deal for me. But that's what it said for me. It was like, you have to have a Wii sensor bar if you switch over to the Wii menu. and I thought that didn't make any sense. I guess I don't know. Maybe it just said that, and I may have read it wrong or something, but that's what it said for mine, and it said you needed the original sensor bar if you switch over to the Wii menu.
Because I remember my mom kept asking me to set up this Zumba fitness game for the original Wii, and because she wanted to try it out. And I was able to use I was able to transition to the Wii menu and use a Wii remote just fine with everything there. I didn't need anything special.
Well, I don't know why it said that on mine, or maybe I did read it wrong or something. But I could have sworn that's what it said, was that I needed to use the original Wii sensor bar. Something said it may not have been that. It was something I read. I remember, and it was like you have to use the regular sensor bar to do this, and I just thought that was really crazy. But I guess I don't really remember exactly what it was. I thought it was the Wii menu thing, but I guess I was wrong on that one. But I don't know. Like I said, whatever they do with the console, I think it should be fine. We always end up talking about Nintendo forever in these. Like, whenever I'm here, at least we always end up doing Nintendo stuff.
It's inevitable, you know.
Yeah. It's Nintendo. And of course, like you said, it obviously was brought up because of the Mr. Iwata passing, so it's kind of natural that we would end up talking about Nintendo still. And I saw a thing, and I can't remember the guy's name, but they have someone chosen who they're thinking about making the new head.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have you heard who it might be?
I can't remember his name, but I mean, obviously he's been with Nintendo for a long time, so he's obviously done a lot for the company because they hire from within. So I don't know who he is just yet, but I'm sure we'll end up learning a lot more about him and what games he's been a huge part on, and what he's developed, and how long he's been developing for Nintendo and stuff. Fairly soon, if he is the one that they end up choosing as the new head of the company. But I'm confident in the future of Nintendo. I feel like even with their missteps, they always make it work. I mean, there's always like, if they have their lows, like the 3DS obviously had a huge low point when it first came out. Basically, all it had was like Resident Evil Revelations 1 and Super Mario 3D World. And now it's kind of doing pretty well for itself.
That's because the Pokemon games are out now.
Yeah. So it's like it's doing fine now. The Wii U had its issues, and I guess the Wii U technically still does. Like, if you kind of really look at it, it has...
We just spent the last 20 minutes picking apart
it's been
the
more
Wii
than
U.
20 minutes. Just.
If anything, we just came up with like every reason we can think of as to why Nintendo should go ahead with this new console.
Yeah. As long as they keep it
I only
right.
listed number 5 for my list. I have 7 points
go
here.
ahead. Go ahead and list them all.
The, well,
Go ahead.
back
You can
well
go ahead,
back to the
Might
NX.
as well, yeah.
Here's the 7 points on what people want the Nintendo NX to be. Number 1, at least as graphically or technically powerful as the PS4.
That goes without saying.
Mm-hmm.
Ditto.
Number 2, region free. Now,
That would be
some of these
amazing.
would be.
Region free for any console would be like the most beautiful thing ever. PlayStation is. The problem is DLC is not region free actually, but PlayStation 3s are actually region free.
That is badass.
Yeah, because I bought I just recently bought Heavenly Sword. I got like the British version, and it's like apparently in Britain, instead of their games being like greatest hits, they're platinum games. So it's like a platinum case for the game and stuff, and it's the British version.
Actually, one Nintendo console that I know is region free that I actually bought yesterday is the top loader NES.
Oh, cool. I think I heard of that too. Because it's technically the Famicom Type 2.
Yeah,
But
basically.
it's the top. It's the top loader. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just watched a Cinemassacre video where they talked about that.
Oh yeah, it was the Bible Games 2 video where James was playing this Noah's Ark game that was made by either Konami or Capcom, I forget which, and apparently it was only released for PAL format. but the top loader could play it.
Yeah.
But
top
the
loader, yeah.
original NES model couldn't.
Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry,
It's
just
fine.
randomly happened, but yeah.
And number 3, strong third-party support.
That would be
Well,
nice.
that will come in naturally with the whole as powerful as the PS4 thing.
Yeah, because that was the issue with the initial Wii.
Uh,
Well, Nintendo's had this problem since the 64.
Yeah, that too.
Point 4, equal. This actually ties into another one of the points I have here. Equal support for all their first-party IPs.
That
I
probably wouldn't happen.
guess it would. I mean,
It would depend. Equal support would be
By
cool,
that-
but equal support I think is
By that, I think they mean just
one-
releasing games for more than just 3 franchises.
Yeah, and I don't think that would happen no matter what company it is. I don't think that would ever happen just like in a row because obviously the games come out at different times. You'd basically have to reset and be like, it's been 5 or so years since any of our first party games. So then it would be like, here's one game from here's Mario, Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and Donkey Kong all at one time. I don't think that would ever happen
the basic rule is
unless it was a mini.
the basic rule is if the franchise doesn't print money, then chances are it's not going to get a new game.
Every once in a while type of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it does at a certain time, they still kind of sort of let it go, depending on what it is. They kind of did that with Metroid a little bit. But, yeah.
Point 5, we already talked about this. Simple console with simple controller, no gimmicks.
Mhm.
Point 6, strong online infrastructure.
They're getting better. It's
Does
definitely
the Wii
good
U
now.
have a strong online infrastructure?
I haven't really used it yet, but I know that it's way better than the Wii. Like, it's actually based on names
Yeah.
now, like the other consoles is. Like, you actually put your name in instead of having 100 numbers and letters.
Yeah.
You can find people based on their actual name now. So.
The only way you could find people based on their names on the original Wii was like by proxy, where you had to have a profile within the game itself. That and like the online was just, I don't think it was that involving. I mean, I had the most fun I had online was with Mario Kart Wii, and then again Mario Kart Wii was really not that good of a game to begin with. Plus, Smash Brothers Online was some of the worst online I've ever played in my life. The game got delayed by, I don't know, a month, 2 months because of that feature. It wasn't worth it at all.
It's better. It is better now, I'd say. It's one of the big things is definitely Nintendo Land and Splatoon. I would say are great examples because of the plaza aspect of it, where you can walk around and see other people's Miis, and you can basically just friend them based off of that. So that's only obviously 2 games, but those are definitely huge steps up from what they had in the regular Wii. So I think it could probably get better. Like I said, I haven't really used it myself, but I think it's kind of on par now with everyone else. You see someone's name and you can be like, I want to friend you, and that's it.
And I think the way they use their online features for actually playing the games is working pretty well.
Yeah.
I've played Mario Kart and Smash Brothers and Splatoon, of course, online, and they all work pretty well for the most part.
Yeah, I think so. I've only had a couple issues with Splatoon. Really random stuff where it'll say it can't even connect to the internet, and then I just do it like a second later, and it'll just load right up.
I assume it's because one of the players you're about to play against doesn't have that good of an internet connection.
Maybe or something, yeah. But I think at this point, I think it's kind of on par with other consoles. You see someone's name, you want to friend them, you can do that. So I think it's kind of where it's going to be. I don't know how you could possibly friend someone faster or better than how any of the consoles do it right now, as far as I'm concerned at least. But if it can get better, then sure, why not?
As a side note, when my game disconnects in Splatoon, I assume that someone's playing Splatoon out in the middle of this shack in Kentucky where they have this really bad looking rat chewed internet cable.
I don't think I've ever been disconnected. I've been disconnected myself for sure. I've had that happen. I've definitely played quite a few matches where other people get disconnected. Like one time I played and I realized, I was like, man, what the heck is my team doing? I didn't have a team. Everyone was gone and it was just me against like 3 other people. And I realized that like towards the end of the match, I was like, that's why I'm losing. It's just me all of a sudden. And like it wasn't because I lost connection, because I was obviously still playing online. But they were like gone somehow, and it was just like 3 people got disconnected on my team, and 1 from their team. But it was still like, holy crap, I'm playing by myself right now against 3 people. So
That's happened to me too. There have been times when it's a 4, turns out to be a 4 against 1 match, and I'm the one.
yeah, so yeah, that's right. I mean,
It's happened the other way around too, where I'm one of the 4 against 1 guy.
I haven't had that yet. I always end up where it's like, oh, I lost 2 members and they have 3, or something like that, or 3 against 4 or something like that. But yeah, stronger. I mean, that's solely based on their connection and stuff, so that's not a Nintendo thing. But yeah, I think the interface is good at this point. But if it can get better, like I said, then sure. And those are all the points, or you got some more?
Last one, point 7. A strong marketing plan, like Splatoon or PS4 level strong.
Huh, that was already strong as it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what needs to be improved.
Mostly people are talking about when the Wii U first came out, a lot of people were confused as to what it was. A lot of people thought it was a peripheral for the original Wii.
Yeah. That, I don't think that should count as unfair marketing or not good marketing.
That was just
I think that was
people
a bad
not doing any
announcement.
research.
I think that was just a bad announcement in general, because they didn't have enough of the console to show off. And it was like, even when, I remember when that happened at E3 and people were talking about it, and it was like, no, it's a different console, because you can see in the video it's under the TV. But yeah, everyone thought it was like, is it just the gamepad and maybe something better?
Actually, I do remember that. Like, it's just been so long that, you can't think of the Wii U without thinking of both the tablet and the console.
Yeah. And initially it was just like, especially since they called it the Wii U, it definitely made it seem like it could have just been something added on, and they just called it, a new thing. But
Yeah, I remember the first E3 trailer. I actually rewatched it a couple of times before I could actually see the console in the background.
Yeah, it's
but
just like
the console is way in the background.
And of course, I guess technically the Wii U is smaller than the Wii, so it did just look like, oh, it's just a white Wii right there, but it was actually the Wii U.
The Wii was already white.
Yeah, I'm saying that's why it was like in the commercials, like, or in the reveal, it didn't look like anything different. It was just like, oh, it's just the Wii sitting down, but it's like, no, that's actually a totally different console.
Actually, now that I remember, I think when the Wii was still called the Revolution, I think it was black.
Yeah, when it first came out, it was black, and I thought that was a way cooler name as well. I thought the Revolution was a really cool name.
Did they ever come out with a black Wii? I know they came out with like multiple.
Yeah, they came
they
out
totally
with a black
did.
Wii.
They should have called it the Wii Revolution Edition.
I thought that was a really cool name. I always wondered why they switched that. Like, I thought, I think it was supposed to be like the concept of Wii, like Wii or playing the game and Wii or the family and gamers and stuff.
And
but
then
I
endless
always
PS
thought,
jokes happened.
I always thought the Revolution sounded way cooler. The black design was way cooler to me. I have a black Wii U. I think that looks way cooler than the white Wii U. There is currently a Wii U Mini, or not a Wii U Mini, a Wii Mini, yeah. I've never actually seen one of those in person, so I don't know what the actual difference is.
It's just a Wii, only half size. It come in white, black, red, light blue, I think green.
Oh, that's cool. And I'm assuming it has less space on it, or
Same amount of space, I think, just smaller.
then what did they do with it?
It's just a Wii, but smaller.
Okay, wait. The Wii.
So
Are you
they
talking
just-
about a Wii Mini or are you talking about a
Oh.
Wii U Mini?
Wii
Mini.
Mini.
Okay, I heard. Is it the one that only got released in Canada?
I thought they were released all over.
They were released all over.
I thought they
know-
were initially released for Canada, and I remember like everyone was complaining because it didn't even have like Wi-Fi capabilities.
I don't know. I never even looked it up. I just saw. I remember I saw it one time, and I was like, I didn't hear anything about this ever. I just saw it one day, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
that-
there's a Wii Mini. I didn't know that.
That's how I know what I've just been talking about. I walked into a store one day and saw them selling a red Wii Mini.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
Okay, yep. I do know it was originally only for Canada, and then it spread worldwide, I guess.
I don't know. I kind of want to do some research on that, but I don't know. It's definitely a couple things that
It was
could
the
be
Game
done.
Boy Micro of Wii's.
They've had a lot of weird consoles. Yeah, the Game Boy Micro was interesting. They had a Wii Mini. They have the 2DS, which is dumb. I think that's a horrible idea in general. I thought that was
My
really
friend
stupid.
got a 2DS, but only because it was cheaper. I will
That I
say,
understand. I think honestly, it just looks dumb. Like it doesn't even fold. It's like just flat. Like if it was like, I mean, I guess technically it would just be a DS if it folded. I don't know, but the fact that it's fully just a flat, gaming piece, you can't fold it or anything, and it's just like
yeah.
almost the size of my microphone standing up. I think that's kind of dumb. You can't fold it in half or anything.
Like, I
It's-
guess that was more acceptable back during the days of the Game Boy, where the concept of a handheld that folded was beyond anyone's imagination, and you just had to deal with the fact that your screen was eventually going to get scratched by something else in your pocket. But now we don't have to deal with that shit anymore. So what the hell, Nintendo? I mean, I would have been okay with like the idea of the 2DS or even the shape of it, and I understand being like, I guess either a more kid friendly or a cheaper version of the 3DS. I still wish it would fold,
Yeah.
just so you can like protect the screens.
Mhm. And also just size-wise, if it folded, it would actually fit in your pocket because it can't. I mean, I've never had one in my hand, but if it's the same as a 3DS, it can't possibly fit in your pocket with the unfoldable design.
It's like it's in this decade they somehow managed to make a handheld that is less pocket friendly than the original Game Boy.
No. Well, that's just how it is. And I guess we can end it there because we've been going for an hour.
Yeah.
Just about an hour and 7 minutes. So we're going to end this episode here. We always end up doing Nintendo. And this one was like full Nintendo, like the last one, the first one we did when we first started the summer meetings. But we're gonna end this episode here. We'll do another one next week. I'll try to make sure that I do upload, the other episode on time. Well, not on time, but before we end up next week, I'll upload the last one we did and this one. Of course, thanks for listening, everybody. If you guys have any subjects you guys want us to talk about, nerdy or not, of course, you can put that down in the comment section below. I'm sure we'll try to veer from Nintendo. I mean, obviously, like you said, it was the Satoru Iwata thing that kind of led that one, of course. But I'm sure we'll have a lot of different varied stuff coming up pretty soon.
I'm sure we'll come up with something not
Yeah.
Nintendo for next time.
But for now, imagine that the JMCC logo is fading away, and then a picture of Iwata shows up with an all-black background, and then it will say R.I.P. whatever year he was born in, 2015. And then that fades out, and then we have like 3 seconds of profound silence, and then the video ends. And then it autoplays to some other podcast that we did.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Like I said, if you guys have any subjects, of course, put them down in the comment section below. And like I said, thanks for listening.